Imagine you are managing like a software development team, and you've just brought on the most brilliant, lightning-fast coder on the planet.
Okay, sounds pretty good so far.
Right. I mean, I am talking about someone who can write hundreds of lines of perfectly formatted code in seconds. They understand every framework, every language.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but there is one ridiculous, massive catch.
I have a feeling this coder isn't going to be, winning employee of the month.
Definitely not, because every single time this developer goes to sleep, they suffer from total, complete amnesia.
Oh, man.
You walk into the office the next morning and you literally have to re-explain the entire project from scratch. You have to explain like who the target audience is, what language you're coding in, and what they just finished building yesterday.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. You would essentially be living in some weird corporate coding version of the movie 50 First Dates.
Right, which means you would spend significantly more time managing the developer's memory than you would actually, building the software.
Exactly. And welcome to this deep dive, where that is exactly the frustration we are tackling for you today.
It's a big one.
It really is. Our mission today revolves around extracting some incredibly practical insights from a chapter called Lesson 9, the 5-file system for better Claude Code workflows.
Right, from the Claude AI Mastery Playbook.
Yeah, that's the one.
It is a fascinating piece of source material because it addresses a wall that, frankly, almost everyone hits.
Yep.
Like, we are all trying to integrate these advanced AI coding assistants into our workflows, but as soon as a project scales beyond a quick, 1-hour sandbox session.
The AI just seems to completely lose the plot.
Exactly. It just falls apart.
So our goal for you listening today is to uncover how to give an AI coding assistant a permanent project memory. We want to look at the blueprint for turning that chaotic, forgetful assistant into a reliable 24/7 teammate.
So you can actually build larger apps without starting from absolute zero every time you open your laptop.
Yes. But, okay, let's unpack this. Before we try to fix the AI's workflow, we really have to understand the mechanics of this amnesia. Like, what is actually breaking down when a project lasts more than a single session?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the breakdown usually isn't a massive, spectacular crash where the AI just, refuses to work.
Right, it's not throwing big red error codes.
No, not at all. It is much more insidious. It shows up in these small compounding errors.
Okay, like what?
For example, you might ask Claude to move on to the next feature, and suddenly it starts rewriting a navigation bar that you both spent 3 hours perfecting yesterday.
Oh, because it just completely lost the context that the navigation bar was already finished.
Exactly. And the downstream effect is even worse. Instead of updating an existing file, the AI might hallucinate a completely new file with, a slightly different name.
Oh, I hate that.
Right. And it just starts writing duplicate code in there. Or, perhaps the most dangerous symptom, it starts ignoring your architectural boundaries.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you agreed on a simple, lightweight design on Tuesday, by Wednesday, the AI might completely forget those constraints. It might start trying to build a massive, complex back-end infrastructure that you never asked for and definitely don't need.
I know my default human instinct here, and I am totally guilty of this, by the way, is to just write a much longer chat prompt.
Oh, yeah, we all do that.
Right. I find myself typing things like, hey, remember, we are building this specific app. Here are all the rules. Here's the folder structure. Please do not change the navigation bar. I just try to shove all that context into the chat box before asking for the next piece of code.
Which, it feels logical,
It feels like it should work.
but the source text explicitly warns that relying on the chat prompt is a losing battle.
Because it just forgets.
Yeah, the chat window is transient. As you talk to the AI, you are constantly eating up its context window. That's the amount of text it can keep in its active memory.
Oh, I see.
So older instructions literally get pushed out to make room for the new conversation.
So eventually, the AI just drops the thread entirely.
Precisely. The project needs its own memory, and that memory needs to be stored physically inside the project folder itself, totally independent of your chat history.
So we have to take the burden of memory out of the chat box and put it into the code base itself.
Yeah, you basically have to treat your project folder like an operating manual.
An operating manual. Okay.
Think of it as a physical clipboard that you leave on the desk for our amnesiac developer. Before they are allowed to write a single line of code, they are required to pick up that clipboard, read the manual, and orient themselves.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because the AI can physically inspect files in your folder at any time, if it gets confused, the solution isn't to yell at it in a longer prompt. The solution is to improve the files on that clipboard.
Which brings us to what this operating manual actually looks like. The source outlines a highly specific 5-file markdown system.
And the fact that there are markdown files is actually crucial to how large language models process information.
Because of the formatting.
Exactly. Markdown provides structural hierarchy. When an LLM reads a markdown file, it assigns different token weights to headers, bullet points, and bold text.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it understands the architecture of your thoughts much better than if you just dumped a massive wall of plain text into a prompt.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. So let's look at the structure of these files for you listening. The source breaks this down into a very deliberate architecture.
Very deliberate.
First, there is the prd.md, the project requirements document,
Right.
which acts as the long-term compass. It tells the AI what the app is, who the target users are, and what the core features are.
Big picture stuff.
Exactly. Second, you have planning.md. These are the technical guardrails.
Like the language is being used.
Yep. Languages, folder structure, the tools allowed, all of that.
Right.
Third is tasks.md, which is essentially the AI's short-term working memory.
It's a literal checklist.
Right. A checklist of small, specific next steps showing what is done and what is pending. And fourth is the session_log.mtld, which is like the ship's captain log.
I like that analogy.
It's a record of the date, the goal of the current session, the files changed, and the next steps for whoever picks up the project next.
Those 4 files essentially create a complete enclosed ecosystem of context.
But wait, hold on. PRDs, task lists, session logs. I mean, software engineers have been using variations of these files since the 1990s.
Oh, easily.
This is literally just standard agile project management. So I have to challenge this a bit. These just sound like standard developer tracking files. Why is this being touted as an AI mastery secret? It feels a bit overblown.
That is a completely fair pushback. This raises an important question, though. Those 4 files in isolation are just standard project management.
Right.
They are completely inert. They do nothing unless someone actually reads them. And an AI, by default, is not going to go poking around your folder reading documentation unless you force it to.
Okay, so how do we force it?
Well, the magic of this entire system hinges entirely on the 5th file,
The 5th file.
claude.md.
Okay, so how does this one single file change the game?
The source issues a massive warning here, which is, do not treat all 5 files as equal. Claude.md is the master control switch.
Why that specific name?
Because the Claude Code tool is literally programmed to automatically look for and read a file named claude.md the moment it starts working inside your project folder.
Oh, so it has this inherent hard-coded gravity to it. It's the one file the AI actively seeks out on its own startup sequence.
Yes. So your claude.md file must contain the explicit, non-negotiable rule commanding Claude to read the other 4 files.
The PRD, the planning, the tasks, the session log.
Exactly. It has to read them before it is allowed to start any implementation work.
So Claude.md is basically the air traffic controller.
I love that.
The AI tries to land a new piece of code, but the controller forces it into a holding pattern and says, nope, you have to read the flight manual first.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Without Claude.md acting as the controller, the AI will just ignore all those beautiful planning files you made.
And the amnesiac developer just starts typing randomly again based on whatever you put in the chat prompt.
Exactly. Claude.md is what transforms passive documentation into an active, enforced project memory. It essentially forces the AI into a specific behavior loop.
Which is what?
Inspect the folder, read the logs, show me a plan, and only then do your job.
I love that. The architecture makes total sense now. But when we transition from theory to practice, how is this actually applied?
Right, the actual execution.
Because the source walks us through building a specific test project inside VS Code to demonstrate the system, and this is where I have another major question.
Okay, let's hear it.
The app they choose to build is a healthcare appointment and wellness demo.
A very specific use case.
And a wildly basic one in terms of scope. It has just 3 sections, appointment booking, some health notes, and a consultation message form.
Very lightweight.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. What caught my eye is the absolute insistence on the tech stack. The source explicitly mandates using only HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and local storage to save the data directly in the browser.
Right, very constrained.
Extremely. No backend server, no real medical advice, no login authentication, and absolutely no database.
None at all.
If our goal for the listener today is to master AI coding and turn this tool into a powerhouse teammate, shouldn't we take the training wheels off? Like, shouldn't we let the AI build a complex backend and a database to really test the limits of this memory system?
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding why those constraints are vital requires looking at how AI models actually behave when they're given too much freedom.
Okay, how do they behave?
You are touching on the very real danger of AI overenthusiasm.
Overenthusiasm.
Yeah. AI coding assistants are designed to be immensely helpful. If you don't strictly define your planning.md to limit the scope, Claude might take your simple request for a health app demo and decide, it needs to be an enterprise-grade platform.
Oh, wow. So it will just assume you want a massive infrastructure for a 3-page app?
Exactly.
Huh.
Suddenly, it is writing authentication flows, setting up cloud databases, building complex routing logic.
Things nobody asked for.
Things nobody asked for, things that eat up massive amounts of its context window, and most importantly, things that you are now responsible for managing.
That sounds like a nightmare.
The source has a fantastic quote that perfectly captures this risk, actually. It says, "Big tasks are where chaos starts wearing a nice jacket."
Chaos wearing a nice jacket. Oh, that is so good. Because it looks incredibly professional, right? It looks like a lot of hard work is being done, but it is actually completely unmanageable for you, the user.
And it becomes unmanageable, specifically because of the review process. When the AI generates a massive amount of complex back-end code all at once, you, the human user, lose the ability to easily verify it.
Right. You can't just glance at it.
Exactly. The reason the source forces you to keep tasks incredibly small and strictly front-end, just HTML, CSS, and JS, is so the AI's output is actually human reviewable.
Ah, and that's why they emphasize local storage. Because it saves data right in the browser. You don't have to spin up a server or migrate a database just to see if the AI's code actually worked.
Spot on. You can read a small chunk of JavaScript, understand the logic, open the file in your browser, and immediately see the visual feedback.
Right.
But if you ask it to build a sprawling backend in one go,
Yeah.
you can't just look at a screen to see if the database routing is secure. At that point, you're no longer managing the AI. You're just a passenger hoping the AI knows how to drive.
Wow. Okay. So you are basically building the muscle of managing the AI's memory and workflow on a small, contained problem before you ask it to lift heavy weights. Okay, so I've written my air traffic controller file. The boundaries are set. The scope is tight. When I actually open VS Code and ask it to build a feature, how do I know it's not just, ignoring the controller? Like, how is this workflow actually enforced in real time?
So this is where the source details a highly structured master prompt workflow. You don't just say, hey, build the booking feature.
Okay, what do you say?
Inside the Claude Code extension, before writing any implementation code, Claude is instructed to do a sequence of specific checks.
Like a pre-flight checklist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has to briefly explain the app to actually read the prd.md. It has to pick one unchecked task from tasks.md.
Okay, proving it read the files.
Right. Then it must list the exact files it plans to create or modify. It has to flag any technical risks. And then, this is the critical part, it must wait for your approval.
So it forces a pause. It is not allowed to just run off and start generating files. You are actively acting as the gatekeeper.
You have to approve the plan before a single line of code is written. If Claude suggests, like adding a React framework or a database during that planning phase because it got over-enthusiastic,
You catch it.
you catch it in the planning phase and correct the scope before it pollutes your code base.
So what does this all mean for the actual coding phase? Let's say you hit approve and the AI writes the code. How do you verify it didn't sneak in some of that chaos in a nice jacket?
That's the next big hurdle.
The source points out this brilliant visual safety net for this inside VS Code.
Yeah.
The source control panel.
Well, the source control panel is your absolute best friend when working with AI.
Usually people think of source control, the git diff view, just as a place to commit changes to a repository.
It's a basic version control.
Right, but the source frames it as your what just happened safety net. Can you explain how that visual check actually saves you here?
Well, when AI finishes generating code, it will often tell you it only did exactly what you asked.
I updated the button color, boss.
Right. But LLMs can hallucinate edits. You might have asked it to update the color of a button in your index.html file. But when you look at the source control panel, you see a list of every single file that has been modified since your last commit.
Oh, so it's a paper trail.
Exactly. If you see that it also magically modified your CSS file, and completely rewrote a JavaScript function you didn't ask it to touch,
Hmm.
you catch it immediately.
You literally see the red lines where it deleted your good code and the green lines where it added unprompted code.
Which prevents you from discovering weird cascading bugs 3 steps later because the AI just went rogue in the background. You
Yeah.
catch the hallucination the second it happens, revert the file, and correct the AI.
That visual check is such a practical tip, but even if the code is perfect and the source control panel looks entirely clean, the workflow isn't over.
Not at all.
A massive common mistake the source highlights is letting Claude finish a task, saying, looks great, and just moving on to the next feature.
Because if you do that, the amnesia creeps right back in. The code base has changed, but the operating manual hasn't.
Right, you have to enforce a strict post-task routine.
You absolutely must force the AI or do it yourself to go into tasks.md and check off the item it just completed.
Mark it as done.
Yes. And then it must open session _log.md and record exactly what changed, what bugs were encountered, and what the immediate next steps are.
Because if you don't,
If you don't make it update its own memory files, your documentation becomes outdated immediately, and the entire file system collapses.
it's like our brilliant amnesiac developer doing a great job all day, but completely forgetting to write down what they accomplished in the manual before they go to sleep.
Yes.
The next morning, the manual is wrong, and they are completely lost again.
And this leads to the ultimate test of the whole system. The source suggests doing a very specific test to prove your project memory is actually working.
Okay, what's the test?
Once a task is done and the logs are updated, you type /clear into the Claude Code extension.
Wait, which wipes the active chat history completely? You are intentionally giving the AI amnesia to test the system.
Yes. Alternatively, you can completely close VS Code and reopen the project to simulate starting a new workday.
Okay, so the chat is totally blank.
The context window is completely empty. And then you simply ask the AI, what should we do next in this project?
Ooh, that is a tense moment. That is the moment of truth right there.
It really is. Because if the system failed, the AI will essentially ask, what project, who are you, what are we building?
Right, the 51st dates problem.
Exactly. But if your system is a success, Claude will automatically read the claude.md controller file. That file will force it to read the PRD, the planning rules, the task checklist, and the session log.
It rereads the clipboard.
Yes. It will process all that local folder memory, piece together the current state of the app, and it will give you the exact right answer about the next task without you needing to re-explain a single thing.
It is incredible. It really is like building an artificial long-term memory for your project, separate from the model's inherent limitations.
It's a game changer.
So let's recap this journey we have been on today for you listening. We started with an amnesiac AI that was chaotic, forgetful, and frankly frustrating to manage on any project that lasted more than a day.
We've all been there.
And we have looked at how to transform it into a reliable partner by deploying a 5-file project memory system right inside the local folder.
We saw how claude.md acts as the master air traffic controller, routing the AI's attention and forcing it to read its own instructions before it writes any code.
And we also explored the mechanics of keeping the project scope incredibly tight and front-end focused early on. We really want to avoid chaos wearing a nice jacket by ensuring every piece of AI-generated code is visually human reviewable.
Right, in the browser and in the source control panel.
Exactly.
A real value for you listening is how this fundamentally shifts your workflow. You stop treating AI like a slot machine.
Oh, where you just keep pulling the prompt lever.
Yeah, tweaking your words, hoping for good code to pop out. Instead, you start treating it like a junior developer. A teammate who actually reads the project brief, checks the to-do list, and meticulously updates the logs before logging off for the day.
It is about building rigid structure around the raw intelligence of the model. And that actually brings me to a final, slightly provocative thought I want to leave you with, building on everything we've pulled from this source today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about the mechanics of what we just discussed. We are training an AI to successfully read its own project requirements, track its own checklists, and write its own session history simply by parsing and updating Markdown files.
It is essentially managing its own state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if an AI can effectively manage its own memory and task lists using the simple 5-file framework, how long until we see AI agents independently creating and managing these 5-file memory systems for other AI agents?
Oh, wow. That is a wild thought. Because right now, we are the ones writing the PRD and setting up the folders.
Right now, we are the project managers. But imagine an architect AI whose only job is to interview you, write the PRD.MD, define the technical stack in planning.md, and write the Claude.MD controller file.
And then it just hands it off.
Exactly. It just hands that entire folder over to a builder AI who executes it. We are using Markdown files to bridge the memory gap right now, but eventually this framework might completely remove the human project manager from the loop entirely.
Just AI managing AI.
It makes you wonder, if your AI teammates no longer suffer from amnesia and they start writing their own operating manuals for each other, who is really managing who?
The transition from AI as a tool to AI as an autonomous project management ecosystem, I think, honestly, we will be seeing experiments with that much sooner than people realize.
I think you are right. But for now, at least you have the tools to stop playing 50 First Dates with your own code base. Give the 5-file system a try, and just make sure you leave the clipboard on the desk before you clock out.